I took my wife to a party. She left with her rich coworker. He threw $1 at me and said, "I'll take good care of her tonight." The next day, when she came home, her key no longer fit the door, and her coworker called her screaming, "You didn't tell me." All right, read it. Where do I even start? The title alone is pure chaos. LOL. So grab some popcorn, because this story gets savage. I'm Chase, 44, and I make custom fire pits and outdoor grills for people who have more money than sense. I'm talking hand-forged steel masterpieces that cost as much as some people's used cars. My company, let's call it Larkin Custom Forges, has been running strong for 18 years. I've got 2 kids. Finn just turned 19 and somehow ended up smarter than me, which is both impressive and slightly insulting. Then there's Maya, 14, who's absolutely convinced she invented sarcasm and eye-rolling. Both are good kids, despite the mess of a family situation they've grown up in. My wife, Lexi, works a corporate marketing gig that pays stupid money for what basically amount to professional gossip and overpriced lunches. She's been climbing the corporate ladder for years, always networking, always schmoozing, always reminding me that her job requires sophistication. What that really meant was, I embarrassed her, because instead of coming home with PowerPoint presentations in a briefcase, I came home with metal shavings in my hair. Here's the thing nobody tells you about marriage. It doesn't usually die in one big dramatic explosion. It dies slowly, like a battery draining in the cold. Little disconnects. Separate bedrooms blamed on my snoring. Her working late 3 nights a week. Weekend girls' trips that started multiplying. Our sex life went from regular to occasional to basically extinct. I'm not stupid. I notice. But I kept telling myself it was normal. Marriage evolves. Right? People get comfortable. She's stressed with work. I'm busy with a forge. All the excuses people tell themselves when they know something's wrong, but can't face it. Then there was her sister, Sasha. Absolute piece of work. Divorced twice by 40 and proud of it. Every family dinner turned into a monologue about how men were trash and marriage was just a patriarchal prison. She'd egg Lexi on constantly, feeding her lines about being too good for this life, deserving better, and not settling. And Lexi ate it up. Started parroting the same garbage, how she'd outgrown our relationship, how she needed more, how I didn't understand her ambitions. But things really started changing about 3 months ago. Lexi began dressing differently for wake. Not just nice, but hunting nice. Heels sharp enough to kill, perfume that probably cost a paycheck. She'd check her phone constantly, smiling at messages, then quickly locking the screen when I walked by. Pretty obvious, right? But here's my flaw. I trusted her. After 22 years of marriage, I figured we'd earn some benefit of the doubt. Man, was I wrong. The passive-aggressive comments ramped up fast. Must be nice working with your hands all day, no stress. Or my personal favorite, dropped at a family dinner in front of everyone. Chase's business is cute, like a hobby that pays the bills. Sasha laughed. Lexi smirked. I just sat there chewing pot roast, planning my exit strategy from family gatherings. Then she started talking about Blake. At first, it was casual mentions. Blake suggested this. Blake thinks we should pivot our approach. Blake's so innovative. Before long, the guy's name haunted my house like a ghost I couldn't get rid of. 2 weeks before everything blew up, Lexi came home from a work dinner at midnight. Said it was mandatory networking. She had that freshly made outlook, lipstick slightly smudged, eyes too bright. When I asked if she had fun, she got defensive instantly, accusing me of being insecure and not trusting her. Classic cheater playbook. Make the suspicious spouse feel crazy for noticing obvious red flags. I should have confronted her then, but I didn't. Maybe I was scared of confirmation. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I wanted to pretend a little longer that my marriage wasn't decomposing right in front of me. Or maybe I was just plain stupid. Call it whatever you want. Then a few weeks back, she dropped this bomb. Told me I had to come to her company party. Not asked, told. Said it was important for her career that I be there, that her boss specifically wanted to meet me. Why now? I asked. Because she hadn't wanted me at a work function in 5 years. Suddenly, I was mandatory attendance. My gut told me it wasn't good. But she threw this at me. You're my husband, and it's important to me, unless you don't care about supporting my career. And that, my friends, was the beginning of the end. I paused for a second, then told her I'd come. The party was at the Belmont Grand Hotel downtown. I wore my good suit. Lexi looked stunning. Black dress, heels, makeup, perfect from head to toe. We walked in, and she immediately switched into work mode. Louder laugh, touching people's arms, throwing around corporate buzzwords like candy. Then he appeared. Blake Halpert. Perfect hair, expensive suit, a Rolex glinting on his wrist, and this smug confidence that just screamed, I've never actually struggled a day in my life. The way Lex's face lit up when she saw him told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just a co-worker. This was the guy, the one she'd been talking about for months. They had this instant chemistry that made me feel invisible. Inside jokes, whispered comments, laughing like they were the only two people in the room. I stood there like a houseplant while they did their little dance. When Blake finally decided to acknowledge I existed, he shook my hand with a grip that was just a little too firm. Oh, you're the husband, he said, like he'd just met some rare species at the zoo. Then they started talking about their big project, late nights at the office, weekend strategy sessions, all the corporate code words for spending time together. He kept touching her arm. She let him. My jaw started to ache from clenching it so hard. Then it happened. Blake reached into his wallet, pulled out a dollar bill, and flicked it across the table. It landed right in front of my drink. Don't worry, champ, he said with a smirk. I'll take excellent care of her tonight. The table exploded with laughter. Lex's co-workers thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. Some guy in a $4,000 suit practically fell out of his chair laughing. And Lexi? She laughed too, joined right in with everyone else. Looked me straight in the eye while laughing at her husband being disrespected by her boyfriend. That's when it hit me. This whole thing was theater. She'd set this up. She brought me there to humiliate me publicly, probably hoping I'd lose it so she could play the victim. I picked up that dollar bill, folded it neatly, and slipped it into my pocket. Then I looked Blake dead in his smug, perfect face. You can keep her, I said. Not just for tonight. The laughter died instantly, like someone hit mute on the room. Lexi's face went blank. I stood up, put on my jacket, and walked out before I did something that would require bail money. I heard Lexi call my name behind me, but it sounded like background noise. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes before I drove. Lexi didn't come home that night, and I was about to make sure she never came home again. I spent the night in my workshop, welding nothing in particular. Just heating metal and pretending the sparks were my marriage, burning down in miniature. I kept checking my phone. Called her twice around 1 a.m., straight to voicemail both times. The third time, I left a message. For words, where are you? Around 5 a.m., I gave up pretending to work and just sat there drinking coffee, watching the sky change colors while my brain replayed every red flag I'd ignored for months. Then my phone buzzed. Bank notification. Lexi had used our joint credit card at the Belmont Grand Hotel. Room charge, $425. I took a screenshot. She rolled into the driveway around 6:30 a.m. I heard her BMW before I saw it. She crept into the house like a teenager sneaking in after curfew, probably hoping I was still asleep, that she'd somehow gotten away with it. I waited in the kitchen, letting her start humming some song like nothing had happened. Fun night, I asked. She jumped, spilling coffee on the counter. Gosh, Chase, you scared me. Where were you? Her face did that thing where she cycled through emotions, trying to land on the right one, finally settling on defensive. The party went late. A bunch of us went out after. I crashed on someone's couch instead of driving home. I'm a responsible adult. Whose couch? I asked. Does it matter? Yeah, actually, it matters a lot. She rolled her eyes. Full theatrical production. Blake offered his couch since he lives close to the hotel. It was late and I was tired. Nothing happened, right? I asked. She started to speak, but I pulled out my phone and showed her the hotel charge. That's a funny-looking couch, $425 for a nap seam steep. Her face went pale. That's not. The hotel is a lounge. We were networking in the lounge. The charge must be from drinks. $4.25 worth of drinks, I said, in a lounge that definitely charges drinks to the bar tab. She went silent. You could see her calculating, trying to figure out which line might stick. And that's when I saw it, just above her collar. A hickey, bright purple against her pale skin. You've got something on your neck, I said. Her hand flew up to cover it. Her face cycled through surprise, panic, and then landed on defiance. I must have burned myself with a curling iron yesterday. After all this, that's what she went with, the curling iron excuse. She turned away and started making toast like nothing had happened, talking about dry cleaning and whether we should get Mexican or Italian for dinner next week. Just chatting away like our marriage wasn't actively bleeding out on the kitchen floor. That's when I made my decision. The locks were changing today. Before she could walk back through that door again wearing another man's jacket and another garbage excuse, I was done. Done being the decorative husband. Done pretending any of this was salvageable. But I wasn't just changing locks. I was about to find out exactly how deep this betrayal went. Sunday morning, I was up at 6 a.m., drinking coffee strong enough to fuel rockets. I headed straight to the hardware store. Bought 4 deadbolts, grade 1 security rating. Also grabbed new handles, because if I was doing this, I was doing it right. My son Finn wandered out around 9 a.m., looking like death. Dad, why are you changing all the locks? Security upgrade, I said, making sure only people who actually live here can get in. He watched me work for a minute. Does Mom know about the security upgrade? She's about to find out. Oh, want help? We worked together on the last 2 doors. Didn't need to explain myself. He'd seen Lexi come home at dawn. Kids aren't stupid. When we finished, I handed him a set of keys with strict instructions not to give them to his mother under any circumstances. He nodded once. Got it, Dad. Lexi left around 10 a.m. for hot yoga, or wherever she actually went. Probably Blake's place for round 2. She tried making small talk about dinner plans. I responded with all the enthusiasm of a parking meter. By 6:30 p.m., she pulled into the driveway. I was sitting in the living room with a book I wasn't actually reading. Finn was upstairs with his door cracked, definitely listening, maybe even recording for future entertainment. I heard her footsteps on the porch, heard her keys jingle, then silence. Another attempt, harder this time. Frustrated, more silence. Then the sound of her cycling through her entire key ring, like maybe she'd forgotten which key opened her own front door. Chase, she yelled through the door. I let her yell my name 4 more times before I casually walked over and opened it. She stood there in yoga pants and an overpriced athletic top, holding her keys. The key isn't working, she said. Yeah, I replied. Neither is our marriage. Her jaw dropped. What? Chase, that's not... We need to talk about this. Let me in so we can have an adult conversation. Adult conversation. I said, that's rich, coming from someone who spent Friday night in a hotel room and came home wearing another man's hickey. That's not what happened. You're twisting everything because you're insecure. Go talk to Blake, I said, the guy whose couch you supposedly slept on. I'm sure he'd love to have a conversation. She tried the door handle, actually tried to push past me. I didn't move. Just stood there, the immovable object. Chase, this is my house too. You can't just lock me out. I just did, I said. Maybe crash on Blake's couch tonight. I hear you're familiar with his furniture. That's when Mrs. Keller from next door suddenly discovered an urgent need to check her mailbox. The Cade family materialized in their yard, pretending to examine their dead lawn. They weren't even subtle about it. Lexi noticed the audience and lowered her voice. You're being unreasonable. This conversation ended, I said, when you turned our marriage into a group project without my consent. Her face went through several colors. She grabbed her phone and stormed back to her car, pulling out fast enough to leave rubber on the street. I waved to the neighbors and went back inside. Finn appeared from upstairs. Dad, that was cold. Your mother deserves this, I said. He didn't argue. My phone buzzed. Text from Maya, who was at a friend's house. Finn sent me video. Mom looked like she wanted to murder you. LOL. Yeah, LOL. But what came Monday morning made the lockout look like child play. Monday morning brought unwanted gifts, a thick manila envelope from a law firm. My hand shook slightly as I opened it. 3 pages of legal jargon that all boiled down to one thing. Lexi wanted money. Wanted it now. Wanted a lot of it. Spousal support. Half of everything. And the part that really made my blood boil? She wanted half my business. Half of Larkin Custom Forges, the company I built from nothing in a garage with borrowed tools and pure determination. The business she'd spent years calling too blue-collar. Not sophisticated enough, just metalwork. Whenever her fancy friends asked what her husband did, that business, the nerve of her was honestly impressive, in a twisted sort of way. This was the same woman who rolled her eyes every time I came home covered in soot, who complained about the smell of hot metal on my clothes, who made it clear that my work embarrassed her at parties. And now she wanted to own half of it. Amazing how fast money changes perspective. I called Tom. He'd been my attorney for years, handled all my contracts and LLC paperwork. "Chase, how's business?" he asked. "Business is fine," I said. "Marriage is dead. I need your help killing it officially." There was a pause. "Finally," he said, "your wife saw Lexi at that place downtown 2 weeks ago with some guy who definitely wasn't you. We figured it was only a matter of time. Everyone knew but you, apparently." That stung more than I wanted to admit. Being the last to know your wife's cheating, that's a special kind of humiliation. "I just got a letter from her lawyer," I said. "She wants spousal support and half my business." Tom actually laughed. "Get to my office tomorrow morning, 9 sharp. Bring every financial document you have. And Chase, stop talking to her. Everything goes through me now." The next morning, I showed up at Tom's downtown office carrying a box filled with my entire financial life, bank statements, business records, tax returns, mortgage papers, and that letter from Lex's lawyer. Tom was waiting with coffee, and a woman I'd never met before. Asian, mid-30s, sharpsuit, glasses that practically announce I'm smarter than you, and we both know it. "Chase, meet Una," Tom said. "Forensic accountant, best in the business. She's going to dig through your finances and find where the money goes when people think nobody's looking." Una shook my hand with surprising strength. "Let's find where your wife's been hiding her betrayal, in spreadsheet form." We sat around Tom's conference table while I unpacked the box. Una's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. She immediately started sorting papers into neat piles. "Let's start with the basics," she said. "Community property state, married 22 years, 2 kids. What assets are we looking at?" I went through the numbers. House is worth about $420,000. Business brings in roughly $280,000 annually in profit. Then there's retirement accounts, savings, the usual accumulation of 2 decades of not being completely irresponsible. And she's claiming what grounds? Una asked. "Irreconcilable differences," I said. "Code for I got caught cheating and need to make it sound mutual." Tom leaned back in his chair. "Here's what we're doing. Una's going to audit your accounts, credit cards, everything, over the past year. We need to know if she's been hiding money, spending inappropriately, anything we can use." "How long will it take?" I asked. 3 days, Una replied. "I'm very motivated by spite, and cheating spouses offend my sense of order." She smiled, the kind of smile that belonged to someone who enjoyed ruining people's financial lives for a living. Tom mentioned, "You said something about hotel charges." "Yeah," I said. "She's been staying there. Got a credit card charge from Friday, $425 at the Belmont Grand." Una's fingers started flying across her laptop. "What card?" "Joint Amex," I said. "The one linked to my business account, for legitimate expenses." Her eyes narrowed. "Your business account? She's been using business fund for personal expenses? Oh, this is going to be good." I handed over my login credentials and watched her dive straight into spreadsheet heaven. After about 30 minutes of clicking, muttering, and sorting expense categories, she finally looked up. The expression on her face said she just found buried treasure. "Chase, when was the last time you actually reviewed your business credit card statements?" she asked. I look at totals monthly, I said. Make sure nothing's wildly off. Why? She turned her laptop around. Because your wife's been very busy with your money. On the screen were rows and rows of transactions. In the past 6 months, Una said, she's charged over $38,000 to your business account. Hotels, restaurants, spa days, shopping. There's even a $550 charge at a lingerie boutique. That a legitimate business expense for making fire pits? My stomach dropped. $38,000. I repeated. The Belmont Grand appears 12 times in 4 months, she continued. Always Friday or Saturday nights. Charges ranging from $380 to $625. That's not business travel. That's an affair headquarters. She kept scrolling. Each charge felt like a punch to the gut. Fancy steakhouses, wine shops, a spa resort in Gatlinburg. Room service bills that could feed a family for a week. My money, funding her affair. Every romantic dinner, every hotel room. I'd been bankrolling my own humiliation without even realizing it. Can we use this? I asked quietly. Oh, we're absolutely using this, Una said. Misuse of business funds. Clear pattern of deception. This destroys her claim for spousal support. You can't claim you need money while spending $38,000 on hotel rooms and steak dinners. She kept typing, eyes sharp behind her glasses. Look at this, she said finally. Regular transfers from your joint account to another account. $1,800 here, $1,400 there, $2,800 last month. Always the same place. Una pulled up the details. Account holder listed as BH Ventures LLC. BH. I repeated slowly. Blake Halpert. Her fingers froze mid-typing. She's been funding her boyfriend with our money. There was a heavy pause. What? Tom asked. Una kept scrolling. BH Ventures, registered 6 months ago. Principal owner, Blake Halpert. Business purpose listed as marketing consulting. She gave me a sharp look. This is clearly just a pass-through for personal income. We all sat there for a moment, processing. Lexi hadn't just cheated. She'd been looting our finances to fund her affair. She hadn't just disrespected me. She'd robbed me. Stolen from the business I'd built with my own 2 hands to bankroll her little love story with some pretty boy who probably couldn't even change his own oil. But then came the real bombshell, the kind of thing that makes your brain short-circuit. Tom turned to me. Chase, I need to ask. This is Blake Halpert. Where does he work? Some tech company, I said. Outdoor products, I think. Tom's grin started spreading, slow and wide. Remind me again, what's your business called? Larkin Custom Forges, I said. But I also own a subsidiary, Ironworks Outdoor Design. Bought them out 5 years ago. Different market than my custom work. What's the structure? He asked, eyes gleaming. Ironworks operates independently, but under my ownership. Why? Tom suddenly started laughing. Full, head-thrown back laughter that echoed off the office walls. Una, he said, still chuckling, pull up the corporate registration for Ironworks Outdoor Design. Una typed, clicked, and then her jaw literally dropped. Parent company, Larkin Custom Forges, she said slowly. Owner, Chase Larkin. Check the employee roster, I said, my voice strangled. Una navigated to my business accounting software, fingers moving quickly. And there it was, in black and white. Blake Halpert, Marketing Director, Ironworks Outdoor Design. Salary, $88,000 annually. Reports to Chase Larkin. I stared at the screen, then started laughing. The kind of deep, uncontrollable laughter that could probably register on seismic equipment. This was beautiful. This was so perfectly, painfully, cosmically beautiful. The universe had just handed me a gift, wrapped in irony and tied with a big bow of karma. Tom was already flipping through files, grinning like a wolf. We're not just winning this divorce, Chase, he said. We're about to make legal history. And I was about to make Blake's life a living nightmare. The hearing day arrived, like a root canal appointment. I wore my legal proceedings suit. Yeah, Apparently, I'd reached a point in life where I needed a wardrobe category for when your wife tries to rub you in front of judge. Tom met me on the courthouse steps, looking sharp as ever. "Remember," he said, "stay calm. Answer directly. Don't volunteer extra information. And for God's sake, don't let them bait you into losing your temper." "I'm calm," I said, and for once, I actually was. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, more like a conference room with paneling and delusions of grandeur. Judge Lucid Brennan presided, mid-60s, steel gray hair, eyes sharp enough to slice glass. Lexi sat across from me with her lawyer, Peter Carver. She wore a conservative navy dress that screamed responsible wife who was wronged. Makeup done just so, tired but brave. She wouldn't look at me. Carver started strong. Painted Lexi as a devoted wife who'd sacrifice her own career ambitions to support my business. Said she'd endured years of emotional neglect while I buried myself in work. Claimed I was vindictive and controlling. That I'd publicly humiliated her by changing the locks. Mr. Larkin refuses to communicate. Carver said dramatically, he shut my client out of her own home and denied her access to marital funds. Judge Brennan looked at me over her glasses. "Mr. Larkin, would you like to respond?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "I'd like to address the public humiliation claim." I looked directly at Lexi. My wife humiliated herself when she spent the night in a hotel with another man and came home wearing his hickey. I didn't humiliate her publicly. She managed that all on her own. I just refused to pretend everything was fine. Someone in the gallery snorted. Finn, my buddy, had insisted on coming. As for the locks, I continued, I changed them after discovering my wife had been spending our money on hotel rooms for her affair. That's not vindictive, Your Honor. That's self-preservation. Carver jumped up. That's a complete mischaracterization. But Tom was already on his feet, holding what I like to call the folder of doom. If it pleases the court, he said smoothly, we have documentation that directly contradicts Mr. Carver's narrative. Judge Brennan nodded. Proceed. Tom walked up and started laying out printed statements, receipts, hotel invoices, and transfer records, one after another, like evidence at a crime scene. The judge started reading. I watched her expression shift, from neutral to skeptical to visibly annoyed. Mrs. Larkin, she said finally, can you explain why you charged $38,000 to your husband's business account over 6 months, including multiple hotel stays, expensive dinners, and transfers to an LLC owned by Mr. Blake Halpert? Lexi opened her mouth, then looked at her lawyer, panic spreading across her face. Your Honor, those were legitimate business expenses. Carver tried, weakly. The Belmont Grand Hotel, 12 times in 4 months. The judge asked, eyebrow climbing. That's an interesting business model. Counselor. Silence. Then Judge Brennan delivered the line that made everything worth it. Mrs. Larkin, she said slowly, were you aware that Mr. Blake Halpert was employed by a company owned by your husband? More silence. The kind that fills a room and hangs there, heavy, humiliating, final. Lexi stared anywhere except at the judge or me. I'll take that as a yes, Judge Brennan said dryly. Or at least, you should have known, given that you were having an affair with him and using marital fund to support that affair. What followed was the most beautiful 20 minutes of my life. Judge Brennan awarded me the house, full ownership, no buyout required. She awarded me the business, both divisions, free and clear. She awarded me primary custody, with Lexi getting standard visitation. And she ordered Lexi to repay $65,000, plus legal fees, plus court costs. As for the assets Mrs. Larkin will retain, the judge continued, she'll keep her personal belongings, her yoga equipment, and a 2009 Honda Civic, which Mr. Larkin indicates was scheduled for donation. Finn's laughter echoed through the courtroom. Lexi looked like she'd just been hit in the face with a legal textbook. Pale, tears streaking, mascara running. Her makeup was ruined. She looked like a raccoon having a meltdown. We walked out. Tom clapped me on the back, already talking about settlement paperwork. Finn gave me a fist bump. Dad, that was better than any movie. Yeah, I said, smirking. I can tell you enjoyed the show a little too much. My phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Finn sent me updates. This is the greatest day of my life. Yeah, it really was. But I still had one more piece of business to handle. Tuesday morning, I arrived at Ironworks Outdoor Design at 7 a.m. sharp. My assistant, Monica, had been with me 11 years, long enough to have a sixth sense when I needed something done quietly. "Morning, boss," she said, looking up from her screen. "You've got that look." "What look?" I asked. "The look that says someone's about to have a bad day." "Need you to schedule a mandatory meeting," I said. "All division heads. 10 o'clock sharp. Conference room." Monica's eyes narrowed slightly. All division heads means Blake Halpert. Especially Blake Halpert. She didn't ask another question, just nodded and started typing. "Consider it done. Anything else?" "Yeah. Pull Blake's personnel file and have it on my desk in 20 minutes. "This getting messy?" she asked. "We passed messy last week," I said. "Now we're in scorched earth territory." By 9:30, I had Blake's entire employment history spread across my desk. Hired 3 years ago, right after I acquired Ironworks. Decent performance reviews. Notes about being overly friendly with female staff. Nothing actionable, just observations. Reading between the lines, the guy was a creep who'd learned how to operate just inside the acceptable zone. Probably been doing this dance his entire career. Charm the boss's wife. Flirt with assistants. Always staying just barely professional enough to avoid HR complaints. Not anymore. I also had the dollar bill. The same one I'd kept in my wallet since that night at the party. I smoothed it out on my desk like valuable evidence, because that's exactly what it was. The thing about humiliation is you never forget the specifics. The exact words. The exact sound of your wife laughing while a boyfriend disrespects you. That memory doesn't fade. It brands itself into you, permanent. At 9:45, I walked into the conference room and positioned myself at the head of the table. Then I waited. Division heads started filing in around 9:55. Susan from operations, Michael from finance, Lucy from HR. They all looked concerned, like they should be. A surprise mandatory meeting with division heads isn't good news. Everyone knew something was coming. Then Blake walked in. Exactly 10 a.m. on the dot. Expensive suit. Perfect hair. Leather portfolio that probably cost as much as a month's mortgage payment. He looked confident, comfortable, until he saw me sitting at the head of the table. That's when the color drained out of his face faster than cheap coffee through a filter. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened, then shut, then opened again. I watched his brain try to calculate what was happening. Watched him realize that the man he'd disrespected, the guy he'd thrown a dollar at, was the one sitting in the boss's chair, the man who owned the building. Beautiful moment. "Really? Morning, everyone," I said calmly. "Thanks for making time. Please, sit." Everyone sat down. Blake stayed standing a little too long, before finally lowering himself into a chair. His hands were shaking. "Morning, Blake," I said, locking eyes with him. "I heard you had an interesting Friday night. How's Lexi doing?" The room went dead silent. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "Mr. Larkin, I'm not sure what you—" "Oh, I think you know exactly what I'm referring to," I said. I pulled out the dollar bill, unfolded it slowly, then slid it across the table toward him. "The company party," I said, "at the Belmont Grand. The one where you were very generous with your financial offerings." It spun on the polished wood, stopping right in front of his portfolio. "I think this belongs to you." He stared at that dollar bill like it was a live grenade. "I don't. Let me help," I said, leaning forward. "That's a dollar bill you threw at me, your boss, the owner of this entire operation, while making jokes about taking care of my wife. Remember now?" Lucy gasped. Susan covered her mouth. "Mr. Larkin, I can explain. Please don't. I've heard enough explanations." Lucy grabbed Blake's personnel file. Lucy practically ran out. The rest of us sat there in uncomfortable silence while Blake sweated through his expensive suit. I could see the panic on his face, watch him cycle through every possible scenario, trying to find an escape route. There wasn't one. "You know what's funny, Blake?" I said, leaning back. I actually liked you when we acquired this division. Thought you had potential, good credentials, decent ideas. I had no idea you were the kind of guy who would disrespect his boss and sleep with his wife. That's poor judgment. I didn't know. She never said. I thought you were just what? Some guy you could throw $1 at? He didn't answer. Couldn't. Lucy came back with a file, handed it to me, and sat down quickly. Her hand was shaking too. Everyone in that room knew they were about to witness a professional execution. I opened the file, flipped through the pages. Says here, employees are expected to maintain professional conduct both during and outside of work hours. Would you say throwing money at your boss and sleeping with his wife qualifies as professional conduct? It was just a joke. Here's what's happening. I cut in. You're fired. Effective immediately. Conduct unbecoming. Clean out your desk within the hour. Escorted by security. Final paycheck will be mailed. Benefits end today. And if you even think about wrongful termination, my lawyers will be thrilled to discuss your relationship with my wife in open court, with discovery and depositions. His face cycled through colors, red, white, gray, green, like a malfunctioning traffic light. Wait, you can't do this. I absolutely can. Lucy, call security. Already texted them, she said. They're outside. 2 security guys stepped in. Both looked intimidating, though I knew they were gentle as giants. They flanked Blake, guiding him out while he sputtered and protested, words no one cared to hear. The walk of shame through the office was magnificent. Everyone watching, everyone knowing. His reputation disintegrated in the time it took to cross a hallway. The meeting ended. Everyone looked shell-shocked. I went back to my office, poured another cup of coffee, and waited. 3 hours later, a voicemail buzzed in. Lex's voice, high-pitched, panicked. Blake just showed up screaming that he got fired because of me. What happened? Music to my ears. But the real satisfaction came 6 months later, when karma rolled up in the form of a dying Civic. Let me back up. Life had finally started to feel like living instead of just surviving. Spring hit Tennessee. Flowers blooming. Perfect weather for sitting on the porch while meat smoked low and slow. Lexi was working at some smaller marketing agency now, making half of what she used to. According to Finn, who still talked to her occasionally, she was finding herself, which is what middle-aged people say when they completely demolish their lives. She'd move into a one-bedroom apartment that advertised luxury living, which basically meant it had a gym nobody used. Blake had fled to Florida. Business gossip said he was selling boats at some marina. Rumor had it his new boss knew the whole story through mutual connections. I never confirmed or denied that. Some things are better left to karma. Meanwhile, my business was thriving. The loyalty series had become our flagship product, with a waiting list stretching into the next year. Each piece came engraved with our motto, "Don't get burned." Word traveled fast. Turned out, being known as a guy who handled his divorce with dignity and fire was excellent for business. I'd hired 3 new fabricators and expanded the workshop. Our order backlog went from 2 months to 7. Business had literally tripled. Then one Tuesday evening in May, my doorbell rang. Finn was at college. Maya was at a friend's house. Just me, a quiet house, and a documentary about volcanoes. I opened the door, and there she was. Lexi. She looked like she'd been through a wood chipper. Hair unwashed, eyes red, wearing sweatpants I recognized from 5 years ago. Behind her, the Civic idled in the driveway, making noises that suggested its imminent death. "Chase," she said softly, "can we talk?" I leaned against the doorframe. "We can talk out here." The thing about desperation is that it announces itself long before the person even speaks. Lexi was radiating it from 3 feet away. She started with the apology tour, how she'd been confused, how Sesha had influenced her, how Blake made her feel wanted. All the greatest hits from the Cheetah's playbook. I let her talk. She mentioned therapy, working on herself, realizing what she'd thrown away. Her voice softened. This was a part where she expected me to feel something. "Blake dumped you, didn't he?" I asked. The way her face collapsed told me everything. That was a yes. She started backpedaling. So that wasn't the point, that she genuinely wanted to make amends, to see if we could find our way back to each other. And right then, the Civic chose that exact moment to make a sound like a dying refrigerator, a loud grinding followed by a painful clunk. Perfect timing. It was almost too perfect, like the universe itself had a sense of humor about her situation. I glanced at the car, then looked back at her. I didn't say anything, just let the silence stretch until it got uncomfortable. She kept talking, rambling about counseling, about starting slow, about how she was willing to do whatever it took. The whole thing sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in the mirror. Behind her, the Civic made another noise. This one sounded expensive. I cut her off mid-sentence. How much does it cost to fix? She blinked, confused. What? I nodded toward the car. The repair quote. How much? Her face went red. I'm not here about the car. This is about us, about our marriage. Our marriage ended, I said evenly, the moment you laughed while your boyfriend threw money at me, when you chose to disrespect me in front of half your office. The car made another noise, louder this time, like it was agreeing with me. Honestly, it was funny. She tried to pivot. I've changed. People make mistakes. 22 years should count for something. It did count, I said. Past tense. It counted when I worked 60-hour weeks building a business. When I showed up to every one of your corporate events, even though you were embarrassed by me. When I stayed faithful while you were busy exploring your options. Then, right on cue, the Civic's engine sputtered and died completely. Just quit right there in my driveway. The silence after was almost deafening. Lexi looked at it, then back at me. Her eyes filled with tears, the kind that show up when reality finally breaks through delusion. Do you need me to call you a tow truck? I asked. She shook her head. Blake used to help with car stuff. Then she froze, realizing exactly what she'd just said. Her face went pale. I didn't respond. I just watched her, standing there in my doorway, a broken car behind her, a broken life everywhere else. She'd come here expecting something. Maybe she thought the same guy who'd spent 2 decades being her safety net still lived here. But that guy didn't live here anymore. She tried one more time, her voice cracking. I miss you. I miss us. I made terrible mistakes. But can't you see I'm trying? I looked at her, really looked, and saw it clearly. She wasn't here because she loved me. She was here because her life had fallen apart, and she needed someone to fix it. Like always. Behind her, the car started leaking something, a dark, oily puddle spreading slowly across my driveway. Probably expensive. I'll email you a mechanic's number, I said. You should probably get the car looked at before it becomes a permanent driveway decoration. She just stood there, waiting, hoping I'd step in. Fix it. Fix her? But I didn't move. That's when she finally understood. The performance was over. She turned, walked back to the Civic, tried to start it 3 times. On the 4th try, it coughed to life, making noises that probably violated several environmental laws. She reversed out slowly, the car shaking like it might explode. I watched her drive away, leaving a small, glistening trail of fluid down the street. Poetic, really. I went back inside and locked the door. That new deadbolt slid home with a satisfying click that never got old. 5 minutes later, Finn texted. Mom called crying. Said you refused to help with her car. Were you really going to let her break down on the highway? I texted back. Did she think about that before turning our marriage into a joke? His response came fast. Fair point. Want pizza for dinner tomorrow? That kid got it. The dollar bill was still framed in my office. Below it, on a custom metal plate I'd forged myself, was my new company motto. Respect the man with grease on his hands. He probably signs your paycheck. Business was booming. Life was better. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's building something so successful that the people who disrespected you become nothing more than footnotes in your story. I looked out the window at my workshop, at the life I built with my own 2 hands, and smiled. Yeah, I was doing just fine. And hey, YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube, this video deserves to blow up